Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. I'm Jon Najarian. My brother Pete joins shortly, and we're going to be breaking down for you exactly what's going on with one day before the ceasefire ends, because it ends on April 22nd, folks. So if you want to know what's happening in the markets ahead of that, stay tuned to the Rebel's Edge. Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge, where it's never an option to miss an episode, right, Pete?
That's right. That's right. You'd be foolish to miss one. You wouldn't be as knowledgeable, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, now we're down to the short strokes, as they say, Pete, because in Islamabad, they're trying to hammer out a deal. Part of that deal is, of course, Iran giving up its nuclear ambitions for at least 20 years. I'd say forever, but I'm not the president. And maybe he's just being realistic with the 20-year cessation of development of those weapons, Pete. But that has not happened yet. The markets are down 0.25% as they await exactly what's happening there. Pete's going to fill us in on the VIX and so forth. But that's what I'd say is the macro today, Pete. It's all a waiting game right now.
It absolutely is, John. And there's a little bit of an interesting, and I don't know if it's what's going on with the lawmakers in the Senate and all the questioning that's going on, or if it is more just on this Iran issue and when is it going to get done. But the Dow was running pretty nice. It was up about 300 plus points. Now, all of a sudden you take a peek and it's down close to 100 points right now. So moving around a little bit, probably something to do with the news. But I think if the biggest news of all that's been market moving, there's no doubt, is Iran. And when is this going to get sort of figured out? And like you said, we only got about, 24 hours or something close to that. So we'd like to see a little bit more progress, but time will tell.
And then, Pete, just to throw one other macro thing at everybody, President Trump said that he'll remember, in quotes, I'll remember the firms that don't ask for tariff refunds. So you can view that as you will, folks. It sounds to me like a little bit of a threat. And that is a gentleman with a very long memory. And I wouldn't want to go on the wrong side of him, Pete.
No, I wouldn't either.
Well, what do you got as far as VIX today?
You know, it's been in a pretty tight range, John. Call it between, let's say, 1875 and maybe 1950 or something like that. Although it is starting to kind of kick up a little closer and a little closer towards 20 itself. So we'll see how that breaks down. But, you know, we know that it can be there. It's been up there towards 20 ever since this drop and then pulled back and that type of thing. So and it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We talk about the fact that it's had a very difficult time even staying up there above 20. But it's interesting to see. You had crude oil down about 1%, John. You have earnings continuing, and I think that the earnings was a positive when you look at some of the names, one of which we're going to talk about. But it's just pretty interesting to see how the volatility is moving around, and I think it's directly like what we were talking about in macro. This is all about Iran. I mean, the movement of the VIX is certainly getting influenced by that.
Yeah. Well, and again, several people that really watch crude oil and so forth, Pete, and know exactly what goes on with taking crude oil out of the bottom of those tanks and so forth, those really big white tanks that you see any place where you're seeing a refinery or a storage facility for crude oil. The bottom of that is pretty sludgy. And Oktoberfest for oil is not good, Pete. Oktoberfest for beer, the stuff that's left in the bottom of those big barrels, that's good. But the stuff that's left in the bottom of those big storage tanks, not so good.
Not so
and
good.
If they're all full for the places where they have still like Karg Island and so forth, Pete, if those are full, we've already talked about what that means for the backing up of the crude oil wells in Iran, and it ain't good. They've got days before they start losing wells, Pete. And if they want to play that game, it's not going to be good for them.
No,
because they'll be chasing crude oil for years trying to catch back up to where they are right now. All right. Well, we don't really have a prediction market today that was very interesting, so we figured we'd dive right into stocks.
Let's do it.
Let's start with Tesla, Pete, because tomorrow they've got their first quarter results. And I think a lot of you that have owned Tesla are probably very appreciative because the stock has appreciated nicely. Last year in particular, it was up about 74%. Now this year, not so much. This year, it's been a rough go for them. It's been a rough go for Daimler, the Mercedes-Benz manufacturer. It's been a rough go for GM, for Ford, for anybody that did EVs. It's been a rough go, even with oil prices doing this, Pete. So Tesla coming out with their results tonight. They'll talk about full self-driving. They'll talk about the Optimus humanoid robot because that's part of Tesla. And they'll talk about exactly how demand for EVs has picked up, if it has picked up, since the price of gasoline went almost parabolic.
I would expect that the answer to those questions is yes. A lot of those questions, John. And when people are looking at the price of oil and they're looking at the price of gasoline at the pump, and there's a lot of vehicles out there that you just want to run with premium as well, John. So we're not just talking about, all right, the bottom of the barrel, no pun intended, but that are somewhere in some places like here in Minnesota, maybe it's 385, something like that. But if you're going to the premium numbers, those start to jump up even further. So, those guys out there who have big, beautiful Cadillacs and whatever, they're looking for the premium. That's a different animal altogether in terms of cost. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, and there's so much to Tesla. I mean, the idea of the robotics, the idea of everything with AI that they've gotten involved with as well, John. I mean, the self-driving, all these different things that are pieces to the puzzle. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do deliver from Tesla. And you know what? It's certainly going to be interesting. Like you said, if you go over the last year, you're actually not looking so bad. You're talking about 74, 75%, something like that. If you're going year to date, you're down about 10 or 12%. So can they deliver? It's going to be really interesting to see. And, there's a lot of different aspects of what they've got out there. I still think that they are, 100% interested in the whole full self-driving. So that's something that we'll see how excited people are for that, John, because that is something that everybody seems to want. I'm like the only guy I know who doesn't want that. I still like to drive. I don't mind it, all that. Matter of fact, I'd like to see other drivers behind the wheel holding onto the wheel. But you know what? Maybe that's just my nostalgic side of me being a guy who likes to drive a car. But interesting to see, and we're going to find out a lot tomorrow night from what Tesla's really getting done.
Yep, and we're talking about tomorrow night, folks, because Pete and I won't be doing the show tomorrow, Wednesday. Yeah. We will instead be shooting more commercials, Pete, on the floor of Chicago Board Option Exchange, now known as SIBO Global Markets. But Tesla, tomorrow night when they come out, we're expecting about 36 cents a share, Pete, and maybe a 33% year-over-year growth. We will see if that happens, Pete. That would be fantastic for them if it does. And if it doesn't, I imagine they're going to be hit.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about UnitedHealth Group, UNH, a company up there where Pete lives. Because UnitedHealth is one of the biggest of all the health insurance players. And their numbers today, Pete, they're pretty damn good because their full year outlook, they raised it. And, more and more we're hearing firms that aren't willing to raise their full year and in fact might either cut it like Alaska Air did. They said, we're not even going to talk about it. Or they will even take it down a little bit because they don't think they have the visibility out that far. UnitedHealth said, yep, we're doing really well and we think we're going to keep doing well. So the stock got a little bit of a pop on that.
Yeah, when you go up about 10% or something like that, John, and you're UnitedHealth, you're going to be pretty pleased. And if you and I both remember when the stock got hit so hard, they started to buy some of their own stock back, right? A lot of buyers were in there. Well, they're doing a little bit of that again, John. They got $2 billion share buyback is one of the things they announced as well. So they feel that they're a little bit on the cheap side. Yes. Did they deliver? And as you said, raise the full year as far as the outlook for 2026? Yes. Those are two big yeses. They talked about cost efficiency as well. The stock is up 25% in the last month, John. It really took off since late March. So are they executing really, really well? They are right now, and that's a good thing. And let's not forget some of those buybacks that they've had in the previous, quarters. These guys are starting to get themselves put into a really, really nice position right now. And UnitedHealth is definitely one of those stocks. It's leading the Dow today. Absolutely. And that was really what was motoring the Dow to the upside in a big way. Pulled back a little bit there, pulled back a little bit on the rest of the Dow. But nonetheless, this is exactly what we've talked about, John. Earnings season. That is the savior. And these guys certainly knocked it out of the park this go around.
Well, let's talk about Tractor Supply, Pete, because they didn't knock it out of the park. In fact, they dropped about 6%, hit a new 52-week low today, trading right around $40 a share, $40.20, something like that. But times have not been good for them. And as you can see, looking back at the chart Jared has up there, August last year, Pete, $64. Now, 40. That's an ugly chart. I mean, again, upper left, lower right like that, not good. I think this one rewarded everybody who actually said, maybe this unusual activity in the puts is something I want to play. Because they did have unusual activity in the puts, folks. A put is, of course, the right to sell an asset at a certain price. And these guys had unusual activity in those puts. And it was at the 43 strike. Those went $3 in the money pretty much as the stock fell today. And again, there's a look. It was 43.66 last night. It was just shy of 45, Pete. And it moves down quick today to trade down to, like I say, a new 52-week low.
Yeah, these guys missed on the earnings themselves in Q1, John. Not by a huge number, but enough. They missed, and that's not good. Same thing with revenue. It was not that far away, but far enough away that people are saying, all right, well, you missed on both sides of that. That's not good. Their sales did increase, so that was one positive to take away. And they're opening up new stores. Maybe that's another positive. They're talked about the robust amount of store openings that they've got, John. But year to date, the stock was already down 17%. You were talking about where it's been and where it is now. And I'll tell you what, the UOA, that unusual option activity, as we don't very often really talk about the put side of it. We see it and we know about it, and we put that up there for people to be able to see the opportunity there. But this one is pretty interesting, and those puts exploded today based upon where that stock was, where it is now, and where those strikes were. This is a pretty big beating that Tractor Supply is taking right now. It's really too bad. These guys, they do a lot of very interesting things, John, but they're just not executing well enough right now, at least, to be able to beat what the expectations are out there.
Well, let's wind it up with another UOA, Pete, but this time to the upside. And yes, when I show you this, folks, it's Navitas, NVTS. It's a semiconductor company, and we know they're hot. I mean, semis have been in demand because of AI and so forth in the data centers. But a lot of you probably have not followed this one very closely. Last Thursday, it was up 20%, Pete. It went up from roughly $10 to $12.70 or something like that. There's a chart. Thank you, Jared. There's a chart showing that. And what's interesting, Pete, is the unusual activity. Timing of that was about as good as you get in unusual activity, because they were in those calls just ahead of that. So 327, So in other words, March 27th, stock was $8.53. You already heard me say it had moved up to 10. Well, last Friday, it was trading basically 13. And then today, boom, to the upside even further. Now, I'm not going to say that we got the ride on that because our options expired, folks. Some of our subscribers may have stuck with it because the momentum was so strong, Pete. And I wish I did. Yeah. But I usually just follow what the activity is. And if they didn't roll, I usually just let it go. And obviously, I'm not crying over spilled milk, but I wish I was in it for today's run. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. And, one of the big things that's moving the stock also, John, is this announcement of a new member of the board, Greg Fisher, who had been at Broadcom in the past and all the rest of that. So also accelerating this move. How about the fact that the shorts that are in there, John, somewhere between 20 and 25% is shorted on this one. So the squeeze is there. I'm sure our man Jeff Garbaz is pretty excited about the fact that this is probably one of those that they were looking at, and they probably did see it. I'm not saying they absolutely did, but they're usually pretty well on top of just about everything. The balance sheet's outstanding. The fact that the shorts are out there and they're playing against it looks like it might have been a bad decision, John, because maybe they were starting to believe themselves, those shorts, about all the crap about AI is done, AI infrastructure. Oh, yeah, you don't want to be well, let me tell you something. Those AI, different stocks out there in all different areas have absolutely been just scoring week after week after week. It's been incredible. The data center world, that's not done. The electrical demand is continuing to grow. So there's a lot to this whole thing. By the way, year-to-date, stock's up 120%. It's up 78% since March. So this is a stock that I'm telling you, the squeeze is on, and I'll bet you they're feeling that pain, John. I'm not saying it's not done because none of us know the answer to when they stop, but those guys are definitely patting on the mat right now going, we don't feel too good about this one. Those shorts are hurting pretty good right now, John.
Yep. Well, it hasn't been a very good month to be a bear, Pete.
No.
March was a pretty good time. Not great on some days because we've seen the volatility of 1,000 points up and 1,000 points down in March. But April, that's been a different story. And it ain't over yet. We're only here on the 21st, Pete. So, all right. We do have a good video for you today. I think you guys are going to like this one because it's one of our favorites, and he's going to break down what's going on with the Baltimore Ravens, Pete, and they're kind of effed for several reasons. One reason, they got rid of John Harbaugh. That was a dumb move.
Yep.
Second, well, they decided to up Lamar's contract. I'm not saying he's not a great quarterback. I'm not saying that he's not a great leader on the team. I'm saying Tom Brady wouldn't have taken this contract, Pete.
Nope.
Because Tom Brady wanted to win more than he wanted just a couple extra bucks in the bank. And maybe that's why you don't see Lamar Jackson in a lot of commercials. You used to see Brady in everything. Now he owns a piece of the Raiders and he's a billionaire. Yeah. Lamar Jackson will be a rich man when he retires from football, but he might never have a ring, Pete.
Right.
Lamar Jackson,
let's give a listen.
New contract. So his current cap hit is $74 million. Let me give you an example of what that pays for in Seattle, the Super Bowl champs. That would pay for Sam Darnold, JSN, Devin Witherspoon, Nick Omenwari, the safety, Gray Zabel, and DeMarcus Lawrence. And you'd still have $3 million left over to buy every Seattle Seahawks a lifetime Starbucks card. The Ravens are out of the Super Bowl discussion with this new contract. Lamar Jackson, new contract.
I would say that's correct, John. I mean, the idea, and I love Lamar. I truly do, and I think you know that. I mean, I've talked about how good I think he is and what he's been able to accomplish and his ability to run, but also throw the football. All the things that he brings to the Baltimore Ravens for all the years that he's been there. It's been fantastic, and he's done a great job. He's got a great running back. That doesn't hurt to have a great running back when you're a quarterback. So, he's got it. Well, I'll tell you what, John. Basically, what is being said there is they can't pay the other players that they need. When you've got basically, and it's not quite exactly, John, but about a quarter of the entire team's money is going to him at $74 million. That's pretty crazy, right? I mean, it's just too much. It's gotten out of hand. The fact, and you pointed out this one correctly, which is, Harbaugh is not there. And he was certainly one of the best coaches, I think, in the NFL. And the idea that they got rid of him essentially to the Giants, and I like what the Giants are doing, by the way. So we like what the Giants are doing to turn, and that's going to take some time to turn it probably, but to turn it. And meanwhile, all these guys are doing is saying, all right, well, we got this great player. We're just going to overpay the hell out of him, and we won't be able to pay any of the other stars, because that's really what this comes down to. And that's unfortunate, because you're exactly right. Tom Brady, he took money off the table when they got Randy Moss. He took money off the table when they got all these other players, the pieces of the puzzle, to be able to get to the Super Bowl. And they did. So, you know what? It works, as it turns out. It's just really a shame, and it's very frustrating. Let's stick with football, John. I wanted to start off with this. Some of the big sleepers into the NFL, into this draft. And I got a few of them. If you want to, add some, or just, talk a little bit about some of these guys, I think it's great. But here's one that I'm going to start with. And I saw a John Gruden interview with him just the other day, and it was phenomenal. But Taylon Green, quarterback, Arkansas, right? 6'6", 230 pounds, 4.3, 640, a 43.5-inch vertical. Oh, and by the way, he's a pretty damn good quarterback. He's pretty accurate. He throws the ball around the field pretty good at 6'6". He's got good vision downfield. But for whatever reason, John, he's not really on that list of quarterbacks. We know basically the top 3 or 4, maybe you could say 5. And he's not in that list. So I'm putting him in that sleeper category in a year where a lot of people say quarterbacks just aren't really there like they have been. I disagree. I mean, first of all, the number 1 pick is unbelievable. He's got the size, he's got the arm, he's got the strength, he's got the intelligence. The kid could have gone to Yale. He does go to Cal, and then he finishes up. I mean, it's amazing, right? I mean, it's amazing what some of these guys have been able to accomplish. But I've got another one for you. Haynes King, the quarterback at Georgia Tech. Now, he's big, he's fast, he's a dual threat, 71% completion, John, ran the 40 in 4.46. He led everybody in the 3-cone drill, the 20-yard shuttle, all of that, threw 29 total touchdowns, had 6 interceptions. I mean, there's another quarterback you could take a look at, right? I mean, he's not getting talked about because people still think Georgia Tech just runs the ball. This guy runs the ball himself, runs the option, but he can also throw the ball pretty damn good. The Vanilla Gorilla. I know you love that guy. You sent me a video just the other day on him. I love the guy, Caden Barnett, offensive tackle at Wyoming. 6'4", 320, puts all the paint on his face and all that stuff, John. He's a wrestler, too. Any guy on the offensive defensive line who has a good, big wrestling background tells me that they're a tough B, and it's somebody that you don't want to play against if you're a linebacker when that offensive tackle's coming at you who has that wrestling ability, because there's just something different about what that brings to the game of football. But that's just a few of I wanted to highlight. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. As Pete knows, folks, I love the Vanilla Gorilla. 6'4", about 300, maybe 310, something like that. 320.
Yeah.
Well, he is a beast. And like John Randall, he paints his face. So it's black all the way down here like this, folks. I mean, it's crazy. He looks like a Viking warrior going to war. And man, he did a great job as an offensive lineman, and playing at a school that he never even looked at, Pete. He, according to the lore out there, they gave him a scholarship offer. He didn't even take a tour. He just said, I'm going. He never had stepped on campus before he just showed up. So, there's a guy that knows his path. Mm-hmm. And anybody that's looking for a guy like that, that just knows his path, wants to play, just has that burning desire, right there. I got to love him. So, yeah, the Vanilla Gorilla. He looks like, Pete, if he didn't go to Wyoming, he would have gone to Western Michigan.
Yeah.
Because the kids at Western Michigan tend to look like this guy.
Yeah.
Because there's some beasts out there.
Yep, there are. This kid's one of them, and he's a badass. I mean, he's a guy who he plays to the end of the whistle, which I always liked myself. I always thought that was fair. But a lot of guys stop when the whistle is started. Well, if you play to the end of it, you get a little more time to be able to hit somebody, which I always thought was a good thing. John, I got one last thing for you, and I know that we can do something tomorrow. So, all of a sudden you're right at the draft on Thursday, right? I'm curious about this one because I brought this up, and I've got some of the numbers, John. I got a player from Division II, and by the way, there's been plenty of guys from Division III as well who've been drafted, who's gone into the NFL and had good careers, and people just don't realize it. But this guy's from a Division II school at Minnesota State Moorhead. All right. And I brought him up the other day, and now I wanted to just give the full Monty on this. So he's a pocket passer, 6'5", 240-pound quarterback. He started 42 games. He threw 64% completion, 13,000 yards. He threw 126 touchdowns. His senior year, he had 3,500 yards. He rushed for another 300 yards. He threw 42 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. I realize it's Division II, or, in some cases, like kids out of St. John's and St. Thomas and some of these schools that get into the NFL from Division III. If they've got the desire and they were a late bloomer or something like that, you never know. That's what these guys are. And this kid, I think, looks to me like an NFL-style quarterback. Now, he ain't going to get drafted, I don't think. If he is, it's going to be very, very late. But this is a guy who I think gets on a roster. You've got 32 teams. I think there's an opportunity if he goes to the right place at the right time. This is a kid that people could, be thinking of as a work in progress. I'll tell you, Jack Strand is his name. He is a beast of a player, runs the ball well, but he is a pocket passer. He's not going to be running on a lot of plays. He's going to be looking downfield. So a lot of fun to watch this kid. I watched some highlight film on him, and this guy can play football, John.
Well, like you said, that it would be fun, Pete, sometime for us even just to talk about the names of Division II and Division III schools.
Yeah.
Because as you know, I played at one called Gustavus Adolphus. Now, it was unbelievable. When I was with the Bears, they'd always call it Adolphus State or something like that. And I was like, no, not really Adolphus State, but okay, I'm not going to correct Buddy Ryan. You know what I mean? I kind of wanted to stick around a little bit. But get some of these names, Pete, because when you said this was the topic you wanted to cover, I looked at a couple. Yeah. Joshua Williams, 6'3", 197. He's a defensive back from Fayetteville State. Then there's Gregory Jr. from Wichita Baptist. And he was in the 2022 D2 football elite. New England Patriots, they've dipped into there a lot, Pete, the New England Patriots. Why exactly, I don't know. But how about another guy? This guy came from Lenoir Rhyme. That's the name of the school, Lenoirrhyne, Lenoir Rhyme. And that guy made the Seahawks. Or Valdosta State Blazers. Now,
I know that.
I've heard of Valdosta State, and I know Pete has, because I think that's the Georgia team, Pete, where the coach headbutts the players, and he's got the blood running down his face.
I think it's Indiana, John. I think Valdosta's in Indiana, I think.
Oh, is it really?
I think so.
Oh, I knew of a Valdosta, Georgia.
Yeah.
But this might be a different you're probably right.
Maybe.
Pete actually scouts these guys, but oh my gosh. Like I say, someday we should just run through the funniest names. It'd be like when Key and Peele do those football guys staring at the camera. Jack Lambert, Whitefish, Montana, or whatever.
You know what, John? I think I'm wrong. I think you're right. I think it is Georgia. It is Valdosta, Georgia. I for some reason I was thinking it was in Indiana for whatever, because I thought of the basketball team that was down there. But in any case, Yeah, there's a lot of those different schools. I'll give you one other one that actually is a bigger name than most, but Stephen F. Austin. That's another one that's put a lot of players into the NFL. And you know what? It's just, it just shows you that wherever you go, you have an opportunity. We had that kid Barsh a few years ago from St. John's, just up the street from here, and let me tell you, John, they found him during the combines, and they were watching some of the different juices that he was making and drinking and stuff like that. He just signed a monster contract with the Detroit Lions. So he's been in Jacksonville, played with the 49ers in the last couple of years, and now he's in Detroit. And, Division III, St. John's University, but the kid's making the most of it, man. And he's a big son of a gun. He's like a 6'6", 320 kind of a kid who's drinking the craziest looking. I mean, he was throwing everything in that thing. But I guess that's what you do, man.
UW Whitewater puts out some players too.
Mm-hmm.
They're a D3 school, but they put out some players, and they're big. I mean, I'm looking at a guy here, Pete, Quinn Miners, 6'3", 320. How'd you like to play that guy in D3? Or they had a tight end, Pete, around a couple years earlier than Miners. This guy's name was Dan Arnold, 6'6", 220. And he was a tight end, and he had 1,100 receiving yards. That's a team, number one, that knows how to win because they're throwing the ball to the tight end.
Yep.
And number two, boy, Wisconsin Whitewater, man, there's something in the white water up there, Pete.
Well, and I'll tell you this. I think they won the Division III national title this year, Wisconsin River Falls, John. They got a quarterback over there who can sling the ball around too. So, and that's just miles away from me in that direction. So, yeah, there's guys everywhere, man. You could be D3, D2, wherever. And if you really want to and you work your tail off, there's still opportunities out there. There's no doubt about it. And there's a lot of guys who give it a shot every year. And it's awesome. It's awesome to see because you know what? It's not just big D1 schools. There's some great looking players at D2 and D3 as well.
Well, as we said, folks, we're going to be shooting some commercials at SIBO Global Markets tomorrow. Thank you, SIBO. We appreciate you for letting us do that. And you guys will be saying, geez, another commercial? Yes, another commercial for It's Not an Option.
Not an option. I love it.
And we'll see. We'll let you know about Thursday. But if we're doing Thursday, Pete, what time would we be doing it?
We got to go with 1 p.m. Eastern time, John. Monday through Thursday.
Bang. Hope to see you Thursday, folks. Have a great one.